A tutorial on how to get started reading data into R. At first, R can be a little bit intimidating, but once you jump over that initial learning hurdle, it's actually pretty cool and does lots of awesome things. First thing you want to do is open up R wherever that's located on your machine. For me, all programs, go to R, and you open it up and it may look intimidating at first. It's actually not too bad. First thing I'll do is I work out of a script, so I'll come up to File, click New Script. It's important right now to note that right now I'm working on a Windows machine. If you're working on a Mac, yours might look slightly different, and there's a few differences. Generally, I'll try to cover those differences, but there's a few slight differences between a Mac operating system and a Windows operating system. Alright, this I just opened as a script, and next to it is the thing is called a command line, this part here. And you can just type things into the command line 3 plus 4. It's kind of like a calculator. And some people work out of the command line. I work out of a script. And you can do the same thing, 3 plus 4. And I just send it and notice it added over here. I'm going to show you how to do that. The reason I work out of a script is you click on it, you can save a script and run it again later. So click to the desktop and we'll call it new.r is the file extension for R scripts. And then I can open that up and run it again later. Now to send something to the command line from a script, like 3 plus 4, you can get on that line and click Control plus R. On a Mac that might be Control Enter or Control some other cool little function that Mac has. Alright, let's get started with reading in some data. To read in data, first thing we need to do is to set our working directory to wherever our data is located. And we use this set WD for set working directory function. Looks like that. 2 parentheses and then quotation marks inside. Between those quotation marks is going to be the path of wherever our data is located. So mine, you go into my little 524 folder, go to slides we're looking at today, and then degree level. And to get the path on a Windows machine, come up to this bar and cut and paste it to the clipboard. Mac is slightly different. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's slightly different. And you paste it in between those quotation marks. Now, if you're a Mac user, you should be ready to go. If you're a Windows user, you have to double escape these backslashes because it's a special character on a Windows machine. Once you've done that, then you can send it to the console. And I told you to click on that line and click Control R. I believe it's slightly different for Mac users. And we can check, we didn't get an error or anything, so that's a good sign. We can check to see what our working directory is with getwd, which is get working directory. Send that to the console, and it repeats back that it's the directory path that we had assigned to R. And this working directory basically says to R, hey, this is where you're going to get stuff from. Okay, now let's go read in our data. To read in data, if it's a CSV file, we'll use what's called the read.csv function. And it works just like the set working directory. Use quotation marks. And then between that, we're going to put the file name. And let's go back to that degree level data and grab everything including the file extension .csv. You can type this in by hand too. Now we could just read that in, but we can't really work with it. What we need to do is to assign it to something, and really what that means is put it onto something, onto a letter or a name, anything. Okay? And the way we assign in R is with the assignment operator, and that looks like an arrow. It's made up of these two characters right here. And we can assign it to any word, letter, uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter. I'm going to use dat. You probably should, it's best to avoid assigning it to function names. So some of you may think, oh, I'll assign it to data. Well, if we type data into the command line and run it with enter, we see, oh wow, this was a function. So we shouldn't assign something to a function. Otherwise we've overwritten that. And then it may cause us problems later. Whereas if I take dat and run it in the command line, it says object dat not found. Well, that's good. We have an object that's not found that we can assign read CSV to. It's go ahead, run that line, and you see over here, no problems, no errors. That's a good sign. Let's actually look at the data. To look at the data, we can type dat, run it, and it's kind of cumbersome to look at. So some tricks for looking at data in R, something called the head function, HEAD, and we don't need quotation marks this time because it's an object we're looking at. And we look at it, and it shows like the first 6 lines of the data set. Okay, and another useful function for looking at data to tell whether it's character or numeric or integer or factor is something called str, and that stands for structure. It basically says we want to look at the structure of my data. Run it, and you see that gives us a list of the variables in the data set, and next to it integer, and gives us some information about it. It says there's, for instance, 31 variables, 687 observations, so it just basically gives us lots of information. Can also do summary dat, and it gives us summary statistics on every single variable as well. These are useful functions for reading in data and then looking at it to make sure everything's looking good. It's been a tutorial on how to read data into R.